Hola community, welcome to BlenderToday Live. This week there are no announcements, just features, and some of them are ones that people have been waiting for a while, especially production-wise. Have you ever tried to render a in cycles with a bunch of textures, 8K, 4K, 8K textures, and run out of memory? Well, we're going to tackle that today as part of texture cache. As you've seen in the title of this video, I mentioned it as a title because it's one of those features that people have been requesting it for ages. Among those, there are other news, and there is animation, there is some modeling, there is some sequencer improvements in performance for sure, some compositor too. So today we're gonna get a bit of everything. No announcements from the community, so let's get to what's new in Blender today. Let's start with A4 animation. In animation, we have a number of quality of life improvements. One of them is that, have you ever had a driver warning, something that's going on with your driver? It's invalid. Yes, it's pretty common. However, Blender wasn't telling you in which data block was it wrong. So now it does. Now it tells you the data block name, so you can go and hunt the issue. So this one by Kevin Dietrich, thank you. And another quality of life improvement is that you can now select, in the same way that you can select keyframes in the animation editors that are to the left or to the right of your playhead. So let's today there's not that many new features. Remember that we did the episode on the 20th of March, a bit later because of the release of 5.1. So there are less features than usual. There's 47, I think I want to mention, and 300 commits in total, when we usually get 400 or 500. So let's do a little demo here. So I have these keyframes over here, keyframes there, right? So what happens is that you can press a shortcut. This has been in Blender forever. They do control click on the left side, and you click on and select keyframes on the left, and the same for on the right hand. So this is pretty handy when you have a bunch of keyframes on each side. These shortcuts, and there is also a shortcut, by the way, is I don't know if you know it, is square brackets for left or right from the playhead, from the current frame. This concept is now part of the markers, has been applied to markers. So in the same way that let's add a bunch of markers, marker, press M to add a marker. So you have all these markers, right? Beautiful, very nicely named. You want to select the ones that are on the left or on the right. So same shortcuts, you don't need to learn anything new. You just need to do the control clicking, but in the marker area. So if I go control click here or the right, it's going to select all the markers, unless you click on a specific marker, and it's going to select them to the left or to the right, so you can do whatever you want with them. Move them. You can scale them. Rotating, I understand, but you cannot scaling. And that's something I like about keyframes, about the using the shortcuts for Blender, is that you can actually scale keyframes, but you cannot scale markers. Small thing. It's for consistency maybe. I don't know if I would actually use it in real life because you want it to be aligned precisely usually. So that's a nice shortcut. Also, the same shortcut, left square bracket or right square bracket, is gonna do the same concept, basically. Select to the left or to the right. Next, we go from assets, attributes, support rendering float 4 data types, but that's just adding the support for it. It's not a feature per se. Some outer space improvements. Speaking of outer space, tomorrow is supposed to be the going to the moon, right? Checking. It's going around the moon. BLI, then BMesh or edit mesh or mesh modeling, basically, have a new option to delimit the toggle, basically a way to delimit the selection per seams, per all the limits that were added for 5.1, but now for the regular loop selection. So yay, nice. that has been, this is a feature that was added, like the limits was improved in 5.1 by Jonathan Lampel, and then improved, now is added to the regular loop selection. I think there's another commit on edit mesh, which is the other mesh architecture underneath. So thank you, Jonathan. Then we move a bunch of cleanups, a bunch of CMake. This is compiling stuff. Unless you compile Blender, it's not really relevant for you. Then we reach the Compositor, C for Compositor. And there is a mix of new things, quality of life improvements as well. Let's start from the top. So usually, by the way, when this list of commits, I run a script that goes through every commit on the range that I give it, and then it sorts them by date. So often when I mention, it's not like I start with the most important to the less important or so. They are sorted by the time they were added, because this way sometimes they add a thing and then they fix the thing or they change it, and then that makes it easier to keep track of things for me and also for you, because you can see how things get added. All right, the feature is render region for backdrop compositor. This one is a feature that you know and love, right? The render region has been in Blender viewport forever, in other places as well, but now is in the backdrop of the compositor. So in the image editor was also there, but now it's in the backdrop. Next one, this one by Habib. Thanks, Habib. Eevee added an option to use the mouse position when zooming the backdrop. Ooh. Okay, so this adds an option to zoom the mouse position in node back image zoom. Is this okay? It's a key map addition, or is it a zoom to mouse position? But this option, oh yeah, so we already have the zoom to mouse position. That's what I was wondering. I hope they didn't add a new feature, but actually this makes it work in the backdrop. Okay, nice. But this already worked in the regular node editor. So I wonder what's different here. Okay. Next. But yeah, thank you, Eevee. Then we have 2 new nodes in town. Yay. Happy new nodes. One node is blank image node. It adds a image that, I mean, instead of adding, because you cannot add an empty image basically in Blender Compositor. So until now, you could add a image, but not no image if you want to make it yourself, like make something procedural. Is this a hint for features to come? Maybe. Just gonna leave it there. Blank image is very simple actually. This should have pixels, by the way. The subunit is missing on here. This is X and Y coordinates, or should it say X, Y? Both. It should say X, Y, PX, PX. All right, next. I'm gonna leave this tab open because I need to mention this later. Just as a note. Next, another new node is called Object Info. Yes, this ports the object info from geometry nodes into the compositor. Only the relevant inputs and outputs and options are available in the compositor way. It makes sense. Why would you have geometry, right? The rotation output is not enabled for now, but it will eventually once the rotation nodes from geometry nodes are ported over. This is done by Chris Ivana. Wow. It's kind of crazy. The compositor is getting, like, if you look at the number of nodes that things are getting, is the geometry nodes got a bunch, then now the compositor. So super nice to see that. Thank you, Omar. Next one is a removal of a feature. However, it will be brought back. The GPU texture limit size preference in the user preferences is a preference that you can use to limit the texture so you can be a bit more memory friendly with your graphics card. However, this was affecting the compositor, and that brought more issues than than expected, or I think it was an oversight when the compositor was moved to the GPU to use a GPU. So that has been removed. That setting is going to be ignored by the compositor, and it will be brought back in the future with a proxy setting, something that is more familiar with compositing. And last but not least, this change by Ramith Sat here implements a small quality of life improvement that basically, let's see if here Ramith added an image. No image, but I made the design task some time ago, some 8 months ago, and I made a video of how it should be basically. So the add menu, for example, the math node, when you change the type of math that you're doing, it changes the title, the label of the node itself, so it's easy to see. And the glare node is not. So now it is. So here I show the bug, like how it should work, but maybe we can just show it, right? We are here. We are in the compositor. We can just add a new glare node, or actually let's start by adding a bloom. A bloom, and it's called bloom. Look at that, nice. And I changed it to ghosts, and it's ghost, simple star, nice. And this, it's only changing the label of it. So you can actually search for star, and it will tell you glare, or you can search for glare, and it will tell you simple star. So nice. Small little quality of life improvements. How's the chat, by the way? I'm checking here. Are there scopes with the backdrop? No, there are no scopes in the backdrop. For that you need to use the image editor, and I think we reached the limit of what the backdrop can do, right? We have backdrops. It's a bit like it gets on the way. I don't know if it's worth it adding even more features to it, because I think users mainly want, especially if you compare to other software, users mostly want to have a image editor, and the image editor will have all the tools that you need instead of getting on the way of your nodes. I've been using the backdrop. I actually use the backdrop myself most of the time, but sometimes it's just better to, and that's why it's been getting more features. But I think scopes is a bit out of scope. Okay, next we have some core features, and then go to cycles. See for cycles, and here is the start of the show. The feature that many studios have been waiting for is texture cache. I think I explained it in the last episode, but imagine I have some bricks here in the back. That texture, imagine if that was an 8K, 16K image, because I wanted to look good when I zoom in, when I have a camera that, a shot that is a close-up of the bricks. So that would be 16K texture loaded in cycles. Well, imagine now I am tiny right here. Well, you don't get to see it, but if I had the bricks, they will be tiny. Why would you load a 16K texture in it? Well, because cycles couldn't load a MIPMAP, they call it, a texture version, a smaller version of that in memory until now, because texture cache is now in Blender. So let's look at the release notes to see some numbers, because in terms of the UI itself, there is not really much to discuss. Actually, if I go here, it's really just one toggle that you need to press. Go to cycles, and under performance, there is a new panel down here called texture cache. So this panel, let me close the others so we don't get confused. So texture cache is a toggle. By default, it's on. You can turn it off. Then it's auto generate, allows you to auto generate the images while rendering instead of having to generate them manually here. And that's it. That's all you need to do. If you want a bit more control where those texture images, the cache gets saved, you can go to the preferences, file path, texture cache. By default, it's gonna be placed, the cache is gonna be placed next to the images, wherever the image is saved. So you're gonna have an image.exr.png and then image.tx. And that's pretty much it. Why is it a big deal? Well, because it allows you to save memory in ways that were not possible before. Not everything is great. There are some caveats. The render time is slightly more. It's a few seconds more depending on the scene, of course, but you gain so much less memory. Like you get more, you get to fit more in your graphics card. So at the end of the day, it's so much better. So let's see. On scenes with many image textures, the texture cache significantly reduces memory and startup time. That's also important. When you press F12, Blender sends cycle sends to the GPU all the textures, right? It needs to load all this into memory. That step is faster. So the moment you press F12 or your render farm starts rendering, that step will also be faster. So nice. This comes at the cost of small rendering performance impact and increased disk space. Yeah, of course, you need to fit the texture somewhere, right? So you need to save them somewhere. So it will use more memory. Then, to get started, you go to Performance, Texture Cache, and Auto-Generate in the render properties, what I just showed you. For every image, a corresponding TX file will be generated in the Blender TX folder next to the image file. This TX file is optimized for loading just the tiles and resolution needed for rendering. Otherwise, it could like spike the memory and then choose the small one. No, you don't want the spike of memory to be high either, because it could crash your Blender. Then it is automatically updated when the image file is modified. That's cool. Performance. Let's see how much better it is. How much? Give me the numbers. Performance. Memory savings and performance are highly scene dependent, especially how much image texture was used compared to geometry. Sometimes geometry is bigger than texture, the image textures. The following numbers are from benchmark scenes that use many images. The attic scene, the Blender attic scene, is very popular. Render time used to be 12.57 seconds, and it's about the same, 12.64 seconds. And the memory though, something that used to take 5.5 gigs of memory and now is 1.5 gigs of memory. So not bad. If it's 5 gigs, that's crazy. Imagine if you render this in, you could actually render this at twice the resolution, so you get 4 times more memory, so they would be like 20 gigs, and this 20 gigs, so it means it wouldn't fit on a 16 gig memory card. And this, if you multiply by 4, then imagine you actually can. That's so cool. Bistro, this other render scene, 4 gigs, 4.3 gigs to 1 gig of memory. And the render time, again, about the same, 17 minutes, 59 seconds to 17 seconds. So it's milliseconds more. It's not even that much of a difference. Junk shop, memory, 3.5 gigabytes to 2.3 gigabytes. And about 2 seconds more, less than 2 seconds more in render time. Larger resolution renders consume more memory, and optimization for this is under development. Okay, so what I said about larger resolution rendering, it doesn't scale as, like I mentioned, like linearly, but an optimization for this is under development. How do you generate the TX files? Well, it has the texture cache panel has a button, like I show you, to manually generate the TX files. The default location can be changed in the preferences with either a path relative to the image file or an absolute path. So you can, if you do relative to the path, you would do like path // and then otherwise it would be absolute if you want to send it to somewhere in your farm, or a NAS, or NAS no, because NAS are usually slower, so you don't want to load them from a slow place. Then standard TX files are generated by other renderers, and OpenImageIO make TX are recognized as well. So you can actually use the library OpenImageIO as well, but maybe less efficient to load. To generate Cycle's native TX files from the command line, the following command as is provided. So you run Blender, like ./blender.exe or Blender, your blend file name, command make TX. Awesome. So for a specific image also, you can wow, that's so cool. You can actually have this, like make a script or tell your render farm to generate TX files for specific. You can make this into an alias on your computer and just make TX files on demand without even having to open Blender. That's so cool. Neat. Simplify. The simplify panel, the texture limit option has been replaced by the texture resolution percentage. This is a single setting that works both with and without the texture cache. This is particularly useful for report rendering. Textures at 50, 25. Neat. Oh yeah, it used to be like a size basically. So if I go to simplify, render, no, what is it? Isn't the simplify panel? In the simplify panel, the texture limit option has been replaced by the texture resolution. I don't see it. Oh, it's a GPU. Fake news. I don't see it in here. Render. Oh, yes. Eek. This needs yeah, I was looking for the drop down because it used to be a drop down actually. Just so I'm not crazy here. Let me show you. In 5.1, you go to cycles, you go to simplify, and there you go. You have this, which I remember when it was added even. You could limit by the size, so up to 8K. However, it's better to limit in a more percentage-wise. That's so nice. However, it's not nice that this is 0.1. It should be percentage, no? Like scale factor. I know it's a scale factor. Could be percentage, right? It could be like 100%, 25%. Would be easier to read, I think. And it's even mentioned in the notes, so yeah, could be. The texture cache is also used for Open Shading Language, which previously used OpenImageIO. This means improved performance and GPU support. Nice. However, some more advanced options for texture and get texture are no longer available. There are some typos to fix here. So cool. Will they be in 5.2.0? Yes, everything I'm sharing today is for Blender 5.2 LTS, coming out in July. Yes, July. Wow. If you don't know how to find out when does Blender comes out, you can go to projects. Then on the sidebar, you basically have here all your dates. 5.2, 5.1 is the active one. These are all the active development. Active releases. 5.1 the latest one, but 5.2 is in alpha. If you click on any of those, you see a table where you can see the actual date. Release is July 14th. But the date that matters to you, because you should beta test, is June 3rd. And that's it. Let's see. What else is new in Blender? That was a lot. And oh, well. There's another comment today that's a bit suspicious. So someone from NVIDIA has been committing small things related to upscaling. Nothing yet added. Just saying, don't get too excited. But here, Patrick from NVIDIA committed this week. Cycles, add specular albedo and improve denoising passes. Adds a new specular albedo pass used by an input by DLSS. Also makes it so background information is written to the denoising pass and so on and so forth. Finally, the default for pass as alpha threshold is updated to match the default in Blender. Okay. Well, DLSS is not a thing yet in Blender. Just saying. Don't get too excited. However, these small pieces making it into Blender in a generic way, it's super nice to see. There's also, actually today there was another commit that was very suspicious that had to do these cycles. Add fundamental support for upscaling denoisers. There is no D word here, as in DLSS, but add basic infrastructure for denoiser that can also upscale for viewport rendering. Wink, wink. So yeah, excited as Alan Crytex is exciting here in the chat. All right, very sus, isn't it? In it. Okay. Let's see what else is new in Blender today. Dependencies, documentation, draw, edit, mesh. Well, let's edit mesh. Again, Jonathan Lampol, similar to the other change, but in edit mesh, which is another, it affects other operations, but it's basically the same. Is they allows you to select boundary loops. It's a simple new operator for select boundary loops. This was possible before, but only by first selecting linked and then using the misname boundary loops option. This method would also destroy any previous selection inside of the linked mesh. Not great. To make room for the new operator, the select loops menu was adjusted. Select and boundary loop. Well, actually, there is a picture here, so let's have a look. Before, after. Before, select loops, and then select again. Select boundary loop. Now is this. Select loops, loop inner region, boundary of selection, and boundary loops. So boundary loops is a new operator where these two were there, just renamed for making things more clear. Nice. The new boundary loops option actually does select the boundary loops with the option to extend the selection or replace it. The same delimit options are available like in the regular loop selection. Nice. So cool. Jonathan single-handedly tackling all the selection issues. Next. Eevee. Not much in Eevee actually. Well, refactors. Porting things to BSL. So BSL is a Blender shading language. I think I explained it here once. It's this language that is unified in Blender and many backends can use, OpenGL, Metal, Vulkan, and ideally making things simpler for developers and more easy also to optimize. You just write it once and then you write translators for other backends. And actually I think there were some of them, I don't know exactly which one, that had some performance improvement just by porting it to this new system. And there was actually one bug fix worth mentioning. There was a discrepancy. There used to be a discrepancy between Eevee and Cycles when a missing texture was missing. When an image texture was missing, Eevee would make it transparent, where Cycles wouldn't. So you actually can see that things are missing. And now they both match. Now it's visible when things are missing. So if you suddenly see things in your things that are missing, then this is why. All right, let's move a bunch of fixes, functions. Yeah, these are changes. I didn't highlight those, but actually there were some changes, internal changes that bring some speed ups. Like this is a 1 or 2% speed up in my test file. Yeah, on what? On socket value logging. So yeah, many of these things under the hood, I check and hands do, they add up and they unify the Blender code. So when one of those functions gets optimized, it's cool to see them all unified. All right, time to talk about G for geometry nodes. There is some optimizations and some skipping of logging node timings in non-verbose context. Well, this is pretty big in terms of optimizations. If you use logging, if you log the timing of your nodes, I believe that's what it is. So when you have nodes and you enable timings, it tells you how much things take. Calculating that takes time. It takes time to calculate time. So this optimization makes it so the logging only happens on what the user sees at the moment. So in some artificial tests, went from 7 to 35 frames per second when trying to update. I thought my microphone's gonna fall. No, so good. Yes. So I think. Well. Something. Oh, my camera froze. as my so the camera froze as the hello as the microphone fell. The arm of the microphone fell down. So I'm having a great day. Thank you. All right, so there you go. Oh, and both things fix themselves. Really? You didn't see me, but this was on the... Anyway, let's continue. But both things broke, both things came back. Life finds a way. Cheers. Geometry nodes. This improvement is again related to timing. So if you use timings and you have slow frames per second when updating the UI, and this fixes it. And also, if you don't use them, if you're not actually paying attention to them, just disable them. You save some calculations. Just think of it that if you have it enabled, it takes performance hit. The next one, also by Jack, geometry nodes. Use string in geometry node. Okay, so this is a change, an internal change that brings optimizations. This artificial test improved performance by 15% related to string comparison when can be replaced by simple pointer comparison. So it's an internal change that affects many nodes. I'm not sure exactly where this 15% is, as in everything. Calculation, when you compare GeoNode exec parameter, seems pretty widely used. So everything is welcome. 15%, I'll take that in anywhere. So thank you. Oh, Hans is here. Hans, please. What does this 15% applies to? Hans is one of the developers. So these tests are super artificial. In real files, the performance is probably the same, unless there are a ton of nodes doing very little work. Okay, thanks. We can mention some of these things. And Shidoi says, oh no, broke company equipment. Let me tell you, that camera, I paid for it. That lens, I paid for it. We tried to buy one with the studio, but it was too expensive. And I already have a camera, so I might as well use my own camera. But yeah, I need to bring it back home and back. And anyway, let's see. But yeah, you see the dedication that we put on this company, on this system. Which does happen sometime. Okay, according to Hans, it does happen. So as long as you have a ton of nodes, I guess it's good. So when in doubt, add a bunch of nodes. Okay, cool. Let's see. Performance, yay. More performance. Optimize power math nodes for special cases. Okay, this is more specific. So this is the power math node. In some cases, when using exponent of 0, 1, 2, or 3, there is some magic going on, which can, for a case that is super optimized when you're using a lot of the specific nodes, it's actually pretty big, from 4 to 19 times faster. So this is awesome. And also improves the Compositor CPU performance. That's so cool. The more of these things that can happen and the nodes that get shared between systems, it spreads the load and the love. So nice. And the last one is also optimization. Actually, all of the things are optimization for geometry nodes this week, which always good to see. So nice. Thank you. This optimize division by single value. This implements an optimization for the division operation in the float math node. Okay, so there are some cases that can be handled more efficiently. So it's a more of, okay, if this case happens, then handle it instead of the same way. By dividing by 0, usually take 5 milliseconds and it takes 8, so it's more. However, any other case, by 1, 2, 5, whatever, it's way faster. What used to take 22 milliseconds now is 8, and 11 and 11 for more than for the 2 or 3. That's cool. So thank you. However, division by 0 case can still be optimized. with further optimizations to more things. Oh, to something that actually I didn't highlight. Oh, wow. I didn't highlight this because it wasn't BLI. I thought it was... This is huge. Wait, no, when was it committed? 34 minutes ago. That's why I didn't mention it, because it wasn't here when I looked at the changes. But a spoiler alert of next week, this makes it so a fill operation went from 20 milliseconds to 3, or 1.8 milliseconds to 0.5, and a copy from 2.4 to 0. Less than half a millisecond. So this is crazy. 3x performance. Okay, so yay. Performance. It seems like 5.2 is getting in shape for, again, a performance improvement, but also features. It's crazy. All right, let's talk about G4 Grease Pencil. A bunch of features this week. 1. Draw tool option for creating all curve types is a new option that allows you to create all curve types, such as Bezier, this takes an accent, I think, Catmull, ROM, NURBS, under post-processing. So you can specify as you draw. That's so cool. Like it converts it afterwards. Nice. Next, the related to thank you, Casey, for this one. Pretty big. Lots of love. The next one, replace default eraser with last use eraser brush and fall back to hard. Good. So when using the draw tool and then you press a shortcut for the eraser, it had its own settings basically, and you don't want that. You want to keep the same size as the one you're drawing to. So this tackles this issue, and when there is no previous eraser brush, it will fall back to hard eraser. Nice. Based on community feedback. Next, Pablo Vazquez is adding icons. That's as far as I go. I don't make things 19 times faster, but if I see an inconsistency, I try to improve it. So I noticed that the vertex paint mode in Grease Pencil was still using the mode, stroke, and fill, like this label, column, and then stroke and fill, but now we're using the icons. We have icons for this, and it should be expanded. So in the same way in the UI here, it was using this list, and now it's called both, stroke, fill, and both. And also the icons are shown in the menu. So no matter if you change it from the header or from the sidebar, you will see the same icon, so you can make a visual connection, because I think that's very important. I think we should do more of that. And I actually have another commit that I tagged as UI, not as Grease Pencil, so it shows up in a different section. But basically it's this same thing, adding the icons to the menus. Small things. It's in the small things. Next. Expose stroke. Oh, this is a Python thing for Grease Pencil. The fill ID and hide stroke attributes are now exposed in the higher level API. Nice. And that's it. This is by Samuel. Thank you, Samuel. Then one small thing I want to mention: every week there is changes in internationalization, so localization of Blender, making it into your own language. This one in particular, no difference. There's so many updates by Damien and Bastian, but there is one in particular I wanted to mention, because you will notice that the cycles passes, not Eevee, I don't know if Eevee is, maybe Eevee was translated, I don't know. Cycles, the passes are now gonna be translated. However, that it's only the UI. That doesn't mean the passes inside of your EXR files, your metadata are gonna be translated. You don't want to translate that. You want to be as close as other software, or you want things to be consistent, and that's why. it's only the what you see. It's gonna change names. Let's see what else. Ooh, I/O. This one, it's also a big feature. It's an experimental change, and remember, I try not to share too much things that are coming, but this is technically inside of Blender. It's experimental though, so it will have things change. However, I think it's important for pipeline. It's something that people request when working with other software, and I think it's important to mention, and it will get improved over time. So this is I/O, initial collection import groundwork. So collection import maybe rings a bell because Blender already has collection export. If you go to the collection settings, you will find a panel called exporters, where you can choose, okay, export to USD or Alembic, and you have all the settings here. So instead of having to manually go and file, export every time, file, export, and then filling in the settings manually every time, Blender has this feature already for many things 5.0 or earlier, actually even 5.4.5 maybe, that allows you to do multiple events, store multiple types of exports, and tweak the settings once, and then you just click export, or even you can see if the collection is marked as export. So it makes it very easy to export. The feature that they just got added in Blender 5.2 LTS experimental, it's called collection import. So you enable it from the experimental section. It's only available in the daily builds. Once you enable that, it's no audio. Wait, what do you mean no audio? Is there audio? Is it live? What do you mean? I think it's pre-recorded. You're here. Please don't say no audio when there is audio. I can hear fine. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Cheers. Okay. Maybe as a heads up, ask others if the audio is if there is audio or not. If you have issue, don't tell the person making the live stream, because it's one of those nerve-wracking moments. It's like, oh no, did I press a button? It often happens that you press a button. Oh, my microphone falls. But that's cool. Thank you. No worries. Back to collection import. Collection import, it's similar to collection exports. Allows you to have predefined collection import. So this is experimental. That's why it's not even possible here. But allows you to define collections that you want to import from other files. This is something similar. I have no experience with this, but people say that it's something that other software has. I think Unity or other game engines have something like this, that you can define a resource where to get from, and you just basically re-import all the time instead of having to do it manually. So this is similar. This is a similar concept. There's a new experimental option that allows you to have a import defined and just keep it import. Almost live linking, but almost alive linking. That barely alive linking. Next. Or alive on demand, actually. Okay. Next. L for line art. Line art has one feature that is worth mentioning, is a fill stroke option, which is something that was added for 5.1. The option is needed after responsive having switched to using the fill ID. So more, this should probably be added to 5.1, but now you can use it in 5.2. Next, M for mask. Yeah, mask. So there is 3 things related to masks this week, but they're different. It's cool to see this when 3 different developers add this. So one is an UI, quality of life, another is performance, and another is better mask altogether, like drawing of the masks. So let's start with that one. The most, I think the one that has going to have the most impact, because it basically makes broken masks work. Even if slow, broken masks work. So the masks, there is a now a supporter for CDT or Delaunay support or filling for masks. So this is basically night and day. So this is how it used to be, and this is how it is. And it might ring a bell because this is something that was improved in 5.1 for curves, for grease pencil, for anything text rendering is one of the features that was improved thanks to this technology. Well, now this is applied to masks. So yay, good masks all over the place. And yeah, that's by Campbell. So thank you so much. It might be a bit slower, I guess, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it is slower, but slow and working is great. However, if things are slow, you can always make it better, make it faster, said Adas, and went and made it up to 20% faster. So this is a speed up by tweaking the raster cell size of masks. Mask rendering is done by splitting the screen into 4x4. Of course, I knew that. So this is switching to a bigger size, cell size for today's typical resolution, HD or 4K, and CPU count. It's better. Oh, so actually the code is a one-liner basically, and adding comments. So nice. About 10 to 20% faster mask rasterizations, more detailed numbers in the PR. So here we can see actually more real life improvements, something like a simple 4K mask main was 11 seconds, the PR is 8 seconds. Or on a Mac, 6 seconds to 5 seconds. A complex 4K render went from 65 milliseconds to 54 milliseconds. So that's nice. Oh, I meant milliseconds before. Nice. Thank you. So one developer makes it work well, but slower. And another developer makes it work faster. And another developer, while I'm at it here, it's added a new option to move the layers, the masks between layers. This wasn't possible before. You have to copy paste between layers. So what do I mean? Well, let's go to the well, we can go to the image editor. In image, we go to mask, create a new mask, and in the mask itself, you have mask layers, right? You can add masks layers, and you can create your mask. And now you can press M to move to another layer. So this is great. I found something that's not great is this. I don't know if you notice, I think it's a bug in main. If you drag the menus from the top, sometimes it doesn't work and it just clicks on the top item. Something is wrong here. I don't know if it's something. I saw the hand just now. Anyway, this is in main, so if you run into this, you're not alone. Next. What else? Mesh, store loose geometry indices and performance. This looks like performance. Is hands, is mesh, can only mean one thing. Performance improvement by storing the loose geometry indices. How much faster are we talking? So performance wise, this heavily depends on the specific scenario. It's hard to give a broad performance improvement. In a test displaying a 2 million edge mesh with a few thousand loose edges, FPS improved by 5%. This should give a memory usage improvements as well for meshes with just a few loose edges as well. So you don't need to have about thousands of loose edges, but still good to know. So super welcome in this case. Thank you for your improvements, Hans. Let's see. Next. nodes. N for nodes. Some small tweaks, I think they, I don't know if they were fixes on the previous operation, because this is, have you ever noticed that when you ungroup a node group, the parent, if they were inside of a frame, the nodes, the ungrouped nodes wouldn't be part of that frame. Now this has been fixed by Lucas last week, so good to see that. And also attach the nodes to the topmost share frame after ungrouping. So not just the parent, but also other ones. Good to see it. Nice. Next. So, quality of life improvements. Have you ever searched by when you drag a link in? So let's say we have the compositor, we have vector, right? And then you click drag and then search for add. Blender now shows you vector math add, right? This is great because I have a vector socket, make a vector. Cool. Well, this wasn't the case for the math node for colors. So for regular mixing, now this will work. So if you have a color socket, it will show you the mix node that matches. So quality of life improvement. Again, a one-liner. So nice. When you see those things, you have to mention, you don't have to poke. Sometimes it's just a one-liner and it makes your life so much easier. Next. Another quality of life, more defaults for blend types. All the blend types in the mix node, except mix, are going to be 1 by default instead of 0.5. So because otherwise, very rarely you want to mix things by 0.5%. You want to see either the full effect or just less, or I think it's better to always see. I think it's a good way to give feedback. You add something, you see it. Does that make sense? That's why I also think the blur node should have some blur. I think by default still is 0, like blur. Yeah, it's 0. I don't want to no blur. Just maybe add a bit of blur, or like 5. It is pixels or not? Nobody knows. Is it relative? No, because for that we have the relative to pixel node. Anyway, next. Defaults, more defaults. Another quality of life changed by Habib. Defaults for the math node, depending on the operation, is a bit more ad hoc. So initialize the new math node with reasonable defaults depending on the operation. So if you start multiply, add, power, modulo, those are going to start with 1. The first and the second inputs are going to start with 1. The ones that are going to start with 0 is add. So I will add 0. The first inputs to 1 and 2 to 0. Oh no, wait, I think I'm reading this because it's supposed, don't use first an input defaults to first input defaults to 1 and the second to 0 in subtract. So 1 to, so you subtract nothing. What do you think? Should nodes by default do something or do nothing and then, because I guess if you have a slow computer and you add a blur node and blurring is slow, then you don't want to, the moment you add it, to get the stutter for blur, but otherwise blur should be faster. I don't know. I think do nothing by default. Is that you prefer do nothing by default? It's really a workflow thing, I think. Math nodes should do nothing by default. Okay, that's just like your opinion. And my opinion is a very opinion based, but I will go with whatever most people think. I think it maybe makes sense if you're consistent. As long as it's consistent, it's fine. You know what is not consistent? Well, no, consistent. Is the outliner. Previously, the outliner, when you were dragging a collection onto itself, like in the same, like you were still inside of the collection. You cannot move something inside of itself, but Blender would still show you the message that you could, the right title, the line in between the items. Not anymore. This is before on the left and after. Now Blender actually doesn't let you move things where they cannot be moved. So thank you so much. Quality of life improvement by Irex. Yeah. Thank you. Next, P4 Paint. Sean Kim added this small thing, which is reveal and hide entries into the select menu. Wow, select menu didn't have these operators. Eek, face vert reveal, face select, hide. Oh, wow. And hide unselected. Eek. That was an oversight on our side. You could do it via shortcuts, but never via menus. And I always like to say that we tackle this, but there will always be leftovers. So thank you for working on this. I hope now we have all of the operators. Well, I hope we do. All right, S for selection. John Kinsell, first time I hear your name. John Kinsell committed this change. Selection. Make selection obey backface culling. This allows to select mesh components, vertices, edges, faces, through the back faces if backface culling is turned on in solid mode. Germ Killer 42. Nice name. Wow. Backface culling has had this issue for years and it's been noticed and mentioned several times. And it's not really that much code. I thought it was much harder. I've seen community asking for this. It's good to see it tackled. Every single other 3D software has backface culling disables backface selection. This is more intuitive because the user can select what they see. This aligns with Blender's paradigm according to this comment. Disabling backface selection makes working with interiors far more snappy and slick since the user doesn't have to rotate the scene. So I think this took longer than writing the actual PR. That's so cool. This I think is people have been requesting for this for a while, no? Seems to be one of those things. It's not the same as X-ray selection, but almost. Nice. So you're saying that if I have a cube and I enable backface culling, I can, well, let's do it with a monkey maybe. Or maybe I should just not do this because, okay, backface culling. And then I can actually now select. Okay, so I can select this and I can select this. So nice. And in 5.1, this was the case. Let's see. I add a monkey. I go inside of the monkey and I press backface culling. And now I can. Wow, yeah. Huh, that's a bit fucked up. We could do this before. And now we don't have to. Neat. Okay, with A you can because you select all of it. So nice. I think this is pretty big. I mean, didn't know it was that simple. Let's see. U4, you and I. Or also you interface. Yeah, user interface. Allow middle mouse button panning in menus pop-ups. This allows middle mouse panning in menus popovers. If continuous graph is enabled, the mouse will be... Oh, yes! This is small, but also quality of life improvement. You know, you can pan anywhere in Blender with a middle mouse button. So if you have a middle mouse button, for example, here, right? If you have a bunch of panels and you can go up and down, Well, this now also applies to menus. So you can, well, no, this is 5.1, 5.2. I was in, look at that, this is 5.2. I can now middle click and go zoom. So nice when Blender works well with Blender, because this is possible everywhere else, and now it's possible thanks to Guillermo. So thank you. Next, this is show evaluated file paths in tooltips. Yep. So you know Blender supports variables in, well, like template variables in some places now. In the file output, for example, in the compositor, you can do like blend name brackets FPS, and Blender will will take that from the scene and dynamically populate that with whatever you have set, which is so cool. You just have this one variable, and it will be, for example, take the blend file name, so you don't have to change it manually every time or use a script. Well, the tooltip now will actually show you the evaluated path. So first it shows you the actual value of this, which is common, and then the actual evaluated path, so you know what you're writing to without having to think too much. So nice. Thank you, Nathan. Next one. This is the one by me that adds a few icons to the strokes, and I can show you this, how it works. It's very simple to the animation. You go here, you draw, and these two icons up here lets you change the cap of your stroke, right? From rounded to square. This option is now also, well, it's always has been featured in here in the caps type, but now it has the icon, so you can actually change the icon. It's a small thing, but if you, yeah, maybe if, I'm not going to show you. Okay, show you how it used to be. In 5.1, the sidebar for this change didn't have this. Or it did in here, but it didn't. Now I have to expose it here. There you go. Set stroke type didn't have it, and set caps didn't have it here. So I was mixing them up. This menu doesn't have this, but now it does. It didn't have this, now it does. Set caps shows you the icons, and now another thing is that set stroke type also shows you the icons in this menu, which it didn't used to. Yeah, small things. Next, a new icon show up. This is called filter active, and it's used in filters when they're active. Voila. Yeah, so in some places, such as, let's see, something with a filter. Well, the extensions can be filter. Now, and now when you press the icon, is gonna show up filter. Small thing, but it makes it easy at a glance, and for people with lower vision or reduced vision can have at a glance to see if something is enabled or not. There is another PR that I made a design task for, that is, I think people already are working on it, which is changing this icon based on, for example, the outliner. This doesn't have a global toggle, the outliner, but it could check if things are being filtered here or not, and then based on that, based on these filters, then either show or not the icon. So yeah, this you can see at a glance. Also for the animation editors, I believe, in the, yeah, this too, it could also show this icon in animation editors. Let's see. Oh, also quality of life. Have you ever been on a project with a bunch of folders, and then you want to go to the folder of your blend file, where your blend file is stored, right? You save this and say you want to save it somewhere. So now if you open say something, there is now an option under system here that is called current file. It's current file. Nice. So you can go to where the current file is saved. As such a small thing, but I am sure you ran into this in the past. I remember I used to run this into a lot of times. So that's why I think in Amaranth I still have it. I don't know if I still have it or not. I'm curious. Yeah, Amaranth added this giant enormous button called current blends folder. I don't need that anymore because now it's done. And it was so hacky, it was just a bookmark to // Now it's actually made properly. So thank you, Harley. One more feature to remove. I'm so happy when I need to remove features from my own add-ons. I hope it's a shared feeling. Next. Oh, this is a mix of quality of life, but also saves your life. Why? Because have you ever run into, well, now Blender shows you a pop-up, but you have modified images. Say you have a dog texture that you painted so much, and it might not be, you know, like an amazing picture of Mona Lisa, but you still have this texture that you painted, and you save your quit Blender, and the changes were not saved. There is an option for that now. It's in the preferences that allows you to always save, ask every time, or never save if you just want to keep this behavior. So this is a preference now, thanks to Tomison, that shows up in the preferences window, blend files, save modified images, and allows you to ask every time, always, and never save. Just as quality of life. And with this, no need to worry anymore. I think the default is ask every time. Let me double check. So go to system, no, save and load, ask every time. Yeah. So, you know, if you don't want to be bothered by it, it should save every time. So say I have some texture here, I go and add a new image, and then I paint it in this image, and then I quit Blender, and now it tells me save image. Or I want to save as a different file, it should also tell me. So cool. Hopefully you don't lose any more files. Unless you want to, and there is a preference for it. Okay, the next one, I don't even have to open, well, maybe I need to open just to give credit to Harley, because I don't know if you noticed, it's a very small change, but these buttons that in 5.1 are 4 dangling options here, these 4 dangling items now are just 1 dangling item, and it takes no time to get used to it, and I think it really makes it more tidy. So it's such a small thing. I never thought of it, so I'm happy that Harley went ahead and did it. So here you see in the left and on the right, small thing. And also I think this should work better, react better to default. The coloring I think is better also. It's more readable. Here's the new, here's the old one. Small thing, but I think it helps. So thank you, Harley, for this one. Although now that they're all together, I almost wish I could move this, like just put it down, or you can also disable this altogether. So you can hide. Maybe we want. Somebody requested, I remember, I think there is a right-click select post to have an option to split the navigation, so you hide this or that independently. But I think they don't know about the option in the viewport navigation that you can actually hide one of them, but not the other. So I wonder if they, as an option, would that be good to have? Not to have too many options, but because we have a viewport gizmo dedicated panel, this should be sub panels too, so we can collapse them. Would it make sense to split that option? per viewport. Next. Fix spelling for a few. Oh yeah, this is always good to mention, to give credit, especially Damian, because not only translations but also fixing text, things that sometimes there were bad names, but sometimes were names that didn't make any sense. There was that add ico cube option that added an icosphere actually. And I don't think it's the ico cube. Maybe it's no. There's no such thing as ico cube. There is a UV cube, right? The one that looks a bit more like a square subdivided, but that's not an ico cube. So thank you, Damian, for looking after those things. And the last section for today is the video sequence editor. There is a number of tweaks here, performance and features. So let's start with the feature, which is called text style presets. Have you ever run into the you want to save some styles for your presets, right? Text in the sequencer can be used for many things, for multiple things. For example, subtitles is a very common styling text. Up until now, you would have to change that every time. So you go to the videos editor, you add your amazing text, right? And it was centered here. So if you wanted to adjust the styling for this, right? You want to make it look like subtitles, so you change the location, you put it down here, you add some outline effects. Well, all of this would be unique to this strip, and you couldn't save it until now. Now actually this is in, let's save it in the desktop. And if I open the file, I should be able to save this style as a preset. So in the header, top header of the effects strip, you can apply one of the built-in effects or styles, corner title, main title, and subtitle. And then this is my title, my ugly subtitle. And this will be saved in your blend file. So now whenever you add a new text strip, you can apply this my ugly subtitle. Awesome. Wait, it didn't apply the location. Bug. Maybe it's a bug. But anyway, we have a few built in. I'm gonna keep this in mind. We have a few built in. So there is a corner title, right? I can show you actually. I made some pictures in it when I made the PR. So here, so this is the default subtitle effect built in. There is one called main title, which is a center big title. And then there's another one that is called corner title, which makes something like this. Adds some border, adds some shadow, and some basic corner titles basically. But it's something that is always going to show up in the corner because it has relative positioning in the scene. So no matter if you have a 16:9 or a portrait or super wide, it's always going to be in that corner. That's it. Next. Speed ups. Blender now is so much faster thanks to ADAS. Look at this amazing speed up rendering. Mask speed up rendering. This is related to the masks that change that I mentioned earlier. Two optimizations. One, for general use in modifiers or a mask strip, instead of rasterizing the mask into a float, do it directly into the image. Speeds up about 10% faster when using masks. And the second update, which is separate from the 10%, this is specifically for the Compositor modifier masks. This improves performance on a 16:9, no, 9:16, so it's a portrait HD video, rotated HDR using a mask to blend between a blur and a non-blur video, something that used to take 74 milliseconds to process. Now it's 65 milliseconds to process. So super nice. Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome. Performance improvements. Are there more effects here? More tables? No. Still super cool. And this is on CPU even. Test on a CPU, and yeah, this makes the scalar float instead of full RGB, cutting down on CPU to GPU transfer cost. Awesome. Thank you, Aras. More performance improvements. Lazy color conversions. Yep, in code, being lazy is often really good because it means you don't process things until they're actually needed. Let's see. This is a color space conversion, which used to be done immediately, converting everything into it. In some cases, creating redundant color space conversions when they were not needed. How much faster is this now that it's efficient? Let's see. In a scenario A with 104K resolution EXR images, about 1.8 gigs, this just rendering this out as an H.264, no effects, no transform, nothing. 51 seconds to 48 seconds. Not bad. And the second one, with several simple compositor effects stacked on a strip, this went from 5.5 frames per second to 6.2 frames per second. So almost 1 frame per second more of performance. So cool. Let's see. And the last one is called Remove Use Linear Modifier. Wow. This very obscure feature that was added as a hack during Blender 2.64 in 2012 has now been removed. Yeah, there was some content that had a bug, so this will be removed because going forward the compositor will be the one that does always in linear space, and if you want to do any conversion you do it in the compositor itself. So this is a breaking change in the sense that it removes the option, but in practice we are not sure anyone anywhere used this option. So if you for some reason were using this option, yeah, this always going to be linear. It's not going to be an option anymore. So that's all for what's new in Blender today. Actually, I think I covered everything. We can go to, is there any blog post or post in the Blender today? Is there any thread on it? No, there is no threads. Okay, so I assume there's no questions. Maybe we can hang out a bit in the chat. Let's see. So how is this? How's everyone doing? Sometimes it's because the messages were in the chat. That's what we're saying. What we were saying. Texture cache coming to Eevee, Pablo. Good question. How would that work? Is that even a thing? Actually, I don't know. I should have asked. I'm gonna ask Clema. Pablo, is anyone working on the KeyMap system? Yes and no. Working technically not, but there is a design task that we need to finish that is being yeah, I need to finish. There is a design task. If you go to projects.blender.org, in projects you have Blender. Inside Blender you have projects, and inside projects there is a design project, and one of the items is the work in progress KeyMap v3. And this is a proposal that I made together with Dalai, but I have to finish. I have to do some mockups, update the mockups. Yeah, it's very rough. It's not finished, but yes, there is work being done in trying to make this better. However, it's a bit how do you call it? Lack of motivation, because I know this project is not going to be worked on this year. There is already a full agenda for this year. So I haven't finished it, but I should finish it so there is less excuses from when there is someone motivated to tackle the issue in Blender. So let me know if the key map v3 is something that actually you think could be like it goes in a good direction. How's the iPad Blender project going? It's not going, unfortunately, because there is no money for it. However, there is money for the Android project, so that is being worked on. So I think iPad is a good candidate because iPad is already there pretty much, right? In the sense of getting Blender to run on iPad. So any fixes or improvements to the tablet experience, it will also translate to from Android to iPad. So iPad is mostly just getting it to run, which is already running. Are you coming to an SC festival? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we have anything presented there. Yeah. How far is the Android port? It's working. Actually, there is work being done actually at the moment. So there is, if you search for Android, there should be some updates. So no, not here. Where is it? I know it's being worked on. So if you go to Dev Talk, maybe if you look at what the meeting, not the meetings, but the latest changes or announcements. If you look at what Jonas is working on, he probably has some XR changes from this week, but there is also some Android. There should be macOS maintenance. Yeah, starting the Android project. So it's legit. Your money from development.blender.org from Dev Fund is being used wisely. Would the lines connect a light object to the world be easy to... Would the lines that connect a light object to the world floor be easy to disable in a building with multiple floors? That's a theme setting, actually. If you start Blender, you have this line. This is what you mean, right? That you have these lights that have this. You can actually go to the themes, user interface. No, 3D viewport. This is the viewport. So we go to 3D viewport, and then there is light, and then you have alpha. This is how you can control the alpha value of it. I made a whole custom stash for maintaining my implementations. Would be great to have if the curve to tube modifier had an even thickness option. The curve to tube modifier is an asset. It's a built-in asset, so that anyone in the community can do. Curve to tube. This is an asset. If you go to the drop-down menu, show node group, you see it's a node group. So anyone in the community can add that option and then contribute it back to Blender without coding anything. It's there. It's in the geometry nodes editor, curve to tube. And as you can see, it's a very, very easy to understand. Anyway, at least you can propose it and maybe have it as a small option. This even thickness option should probably be part of 5.2, either as a change to the node group or maybe a change to the built-in node. There is already a PR for this. Oh, nice. Awesome. Thank you, Hans. You got the answer right, developers. Cool. I've made a while back, I made a simple PR to fix a small issue in the file browser. I was wondering if I was supposed to add reviewers. No. Usually it's better if you if you don't add the reviewers yourself, because you might add the wrong reviewer and it will make noise. In the future, actually, I think it would probably be assigned a reviewer automatically because of the code owner rules. However, you can always drop by the chat.blender.org and mention to developers like, hey, I made this fix. You know, you can just drop by. Do I need to poke someone? And yeah, thank you. And it's a fix. File stack highlighted after renaming in the file browser. When renaming in the file browser, none of the selection function will remove it. Nice. I'm gonna ask Pratik if he can have a look. I think he's related to the UI. He does work on the file browser. Hey, could you please have a look at this? Thanks. You know, it's just asking you would have been done in the chat, but you don't have to. I can ask developers. But thanks for working on a fix, even getting out of your way to fix Blender. So online assets are fully merged, ready for 5.2 now. They are actually. I mean, they're experimental now. So you need to go to the preferences and experimental and remote assets libraries. Now that you've done that, if you go to the asset libraries, add remote asset library and write a very specific URL that has this remote asset library, then you can access it. I don't know if I have a remote asset library FTP or not. Do I have Polyhaven? I don't know if this will work. Let's see, because it was one download. Yeah. Wow, this is online. This is coming from the web. It has an icon. Let me see. Can I bring a cat from the web? Drag. It shows you, when you drag it, it shows you 2 error messages, you know, in red, in case you were unsure. So okay, you click drag, have a look. 2 messages, and then this ginormous thing. There's an issue now. I think that the textures in this library are not working, but I think I've seen I've seen this working for other libraries. So I think this one should work, or no. There was another one that was working, but anyway, you can get it to work. Actually, this is coming from the web, from the internet. I don't have Polyhaven here. It's so cool. The same for HDR eyes, but this doesn't work. The world doesn't work. The world doesn't work. That sounds so tragic. Though sometimes feels good. Not in Blender today, because we look at cool stuff. Positive stuff. Is there any custom URL to get the sample online assets? There is. So the URL that I used, it is a sample, but it's, maybe let's not abuse it, because well, first, it doesn't work, as you can see. It's missing some things, but you can build your own. Actually, there is instructions on how to make your own asset libraries. When Blender 5.0.1, wait, there was a note here. Now that, let's do 5 questions. So I wrap up without taking too long. Let's see. So now that the video sequence editor got Compositor support, you think it will be possible in the future for the image editor to also get a modifiers panel that when you then will link to in the now the sequencer has Compositor. Do you think it will be possible for the image editor to also get modifiers? Yes. So, oh, nice lighting. So, images. An image is a texture, right? A texture is an image like the Compositor, basically. It's in, out, image in, image out. That can have, or it doesn't really take that much to implement these two for images in a way. So images can have modifiers. An image can be used as a texture. A texture with modifiers, a mask modifier, a generative modifier, a generator modifier, is basically the building blocks for the next big thing after texture cache, which is something that we've recently started working on design tasks for it. and it's one of the topics, has been one of the topics of the year for many years, but I'm happy to announce that it's being worked on, actually actively worked on, which is layered textures, layer materials, layers. Still have to come up with a name. I think it's gonna be layer materials. So one material to have multiple layers where you can have multiple effects, modifiers on a mask or on the base color. You can add a new fill layer, you can add a new paint layer, that kind of features. So that is being worked on. Still very early. There is zero code, it's just design. So soon. But yeah, next. Let's see. I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but there is something that could look potentially something like this. That you have layers, you can choose the rust or the color, and then have a paint or curvature modifier in it. You mix it, so this could be potentially fun. All right, that was question 1. So yeah, yes, and yeah. Let's see. Where was the question? I think here there was it. And then we got our spammer again with different usernames. Same thing. I think it's bots are getting very. Maybe I need to extend the time for subscribers to comment. At least we're getting subscribers, because each one of this is you need to be subscribed to comment. So that's good. But maybe we need to extend the time, although it's a bit unfair to people who just watch this for the first time. How can we help for UX improvement? Please make it, well, make a case of what you would like to improve and just show up in the channel for us. That would be great. Let's see. Wow, I think I lost where were we? Compositor nodes are probably also in this, I think. Yes. Sorry yet again. Pablo, any news on GeoNodes, physics, or open image denoise, temporal denoising? No. I mean, physics is being worked on. Temporal denoising, I don't think, but that's coming from open image denoiser, right? So I don't think that has been released yet. Maybe it has. Imagine the educational potential of online assets for schools. Yeah, for anyone. For Blender itself, Blender shipping with assets for the very first time. We do have assets, but we don't have materials, right? Every time you need to make, just like I want a glass material, you have to make it from scratch every time. Yeah, not anymore. Soon with online assets. I won't need to make the local libraries for assets. That is another LLM spam bot. Yeah, glad to see progress for Android. Welcome Move Inc. Actually, we have some Move Inc. and those will be the models that will be used as testing. So you're safe with the Wacom Move Inc. I wish Samsung would be a sponsor, because they have some amazing tablets too. Not sure if you saw my previous comment, but the light lines are still selectable when you mean selectivity, not eek. Yeah, no, maybe they shouldn't be selectable if they're transparent. That's for sure. Yeah, that's a bug. Maybe can you please report this as a bug? Go to Blender, file, new bug report. Yeah, because they shouldn't be selectable if they're fully transparent. Let's see. Is there a combination of Compositor, GeoNodes, and shaders at the same time? Yep. I thought you were talking about me. No. Add plane mesh would be a great option. Add plane mesh interactively will be a great option. What is add plane to mesh interactively? Image as plane, maybe? Will the layer materials be compatible with Llama? No. Well, I don't know. What Llama materials is this system? No, Llama AI. No, Llama. How it's called? Llama. No. Layered materials, Material X. Well, I mean, maybe because Material X support and OpenPVR support is on its way. So yeah, I would assume yes. Yeah, but don't take my word for it. But I would assume yes. There will need to be image node sockets in the shader editor. Yes. Hey Pablo, any news from the animation module about layers and constraint? Animation layers, it's coming. There is a PR really a work in progress, but layer is, what is it called? Layer action. It's a work in progress, but you may be glad to see this. This is a panel in the actions, animations. So you can have layers. Early work in progress, but it's coming. Layer actions. What else? The image texture node was unified to allow editable motion paths. Will be amazing. Yeah, editable motion paths is really hard to do in a good way. The world isn't ending, so it's good in a good way, and in a way that it's performant. Many add-ons. I know there are many add-ons that say, you know, Blender doesn't have this, and we made these motion paths, editable motion paths. Yeah, but they're slow and they're done wrong. Anyways, I will get in my way out because the chat is full of great people, but it's also a bit strange today, and we'll be chatting for a bit more than an hour. We already seen everything that's new in Blender. As of today, there were not that many features, but the ones that were there are very, very big. So please tell those in productions, in people that were using cycles in big productions, small productions, anywhere, but that were limited by their memory, or even you were rendering something that was limited by your memory, or you were rendering something on a render farm and you got the model with like 8 gigs and your render wouldn't fit. Try again, because now it should, but you should ask them to update. This is alpha though, so I know some places would do that on demand. I know Render Street, when we used it for Caminandes, I point because I have the poster of Caminandes right there. They added it for us, so I bet it's pretty common in other platforms too. Anyways, thanks for staying until the end. I had a really fun time. Always happy to share these news. I think maybe we can even make a dedicated video with Brecht about texture cache once it gets maybe a blog post presenting it and some more details, because it is pretty big. I think people in working production have been working on this for the longest time. So I think it's good to highlight more, sell it more. It's one of the selling points of 5.2 already, and we still have 2 more months. Yes, 2 more months, on the June 3rd, which is the beta. So we have 2 months of features. Awesome. What about Blender tomorrow? Oh yes, what about Blender tomorrow? Thanks for the heads up. Blender tomorrow, this is the show that we make in this other channel that we have, the Blender Developers channel, because one channel is not enough. Blender Developers YouTube channel highlights has a section called Blender Tomorrow, which is Blender Today, but for features that are yet to come, but are designed technically and passed over to the team. So in this case, we have some features, we have some designs of the work in progress that we had for the updater. How does it look? How does it basically you get notified when Blender has new updates. So this is something that we publish in the Blender Developers YouTube channel, so you can go check it out. And will there be a new episode? Yeah, of course there will be a new episode, but we only do those videos once the design of a task has been handed over to the team to work on it. So we don't want to promise to things that are up in the air too much. So yeah, that's why it doesn't have a fixed schedule. It's as soon as we get to pass on this feature to the developers. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a fun time. I know I did. Let's meet again in 2 weeks' time. Let's see if it doesn't get on the way of holidays or whatever, because next week is Easter already in some countries. So 31st is today. The next one is 7th, and the next one is the 14th. BitCon Austin will take place during the next Blender Today. So let's meet next week, not the week after. Same place, same time, for another episode of Blender Today live. And block your ear holes because it wasn't that loud, was it? No. Anyway, thanks everyone. I hope you have a great time. See you next time. A great week. Happy birthday to Andy Gorachik.